If I told you that in a single country the lives of hundreds of thousands of women are governed by millennial-old traditions, unwritten laws, and social norms that force them to relinquish even their most basic desires and decisions, would you believe me? In Afghanistan, marriage is not merely the union of two people. It is a mirror reflecting a complex cultural tapestry in which honor, bride price, and the most conservative interpretations of Islamic law determine the fate of young women. Stay tuned. One of the final revelations will challenge every assumption you've ever held about human dignity and resilience. Subscribe now to ensure you don't miss a single detail. Welcome to World Marvels. 10. Forced marriages and massive age gaps. In Afghanistan, marrying a much older man isn't a personal choice. It's a family strategy. Parents secure their daughters' futures by arranging marriages with men who have already amassed resources, land, or local influence. Age differences sometimes exceed 30 years, justified as a means of guaranteeing economic stability in a landscape of scarcity. Yet this generational chasm erodes any chance of an authentic relationship. A bride who is barely more than a child must quickly adapt to the customs and temperament of a mature adult whose values and life experiences are worlds apart from her own. With the Taliban's return to power in 2021, these unions became even more entrenched. Restrictions on women tightened, and any form of dissent or education beyond home-based religious instruction was ruthlessly curtailed. The impact goes beyond emotional alienation. Girls married off in their early teens often face life-threatening childbirth complications, psychological trauma, and a complete severance from the schooling that might have offered a path to autonomy. Even within the household, these brides are silenced. Voicing discomfort or asking for family planning equates to dishonoring both husband and in-laws. A taboo that carries real, sometimes deadly, consequences. 9. The tribal honor system. Namus, or honor, acts as an unyielding social tribunal in many Afghan communities. When a young woman resists the marriage chosen for her, she doesn't merely defy her parents. She taints the prestige of her entire clan. Word of a perceived dishonor ripples through villages and valleys, prompting local elders to step in to restore balance. This communal policing is ruthless. Neighbors grow suspicious, religious leaders preach about a woman's duty to obey, and the family, fearing social exile, resorts to escalating forms of coercion. Isolation in one's own home, threats of violence, or forced religious admonishments become tools to enforce compliance. In effect, the tribal honor code functions as an invisible chain, binding women to traditions that facilitate their subjugation. Moreover, the honor system extends into legal gray areas. No formal court need convict a family of wrongdoing, because the court of public opinion holds supreme sway. An accusation of defiance can lead to corrective marriages, physical punishment, or restrictions so severe that a woman might spend years confined to her family compound, effectively imprisoned in the name of preserving honor. 8. Dowry and debt-driven marriages. Known locally as jahez, the dowry system reduces marriage to a financial contract. The groom's family pays a substantial sum or transfers property to the bride's relatives. In regions where poverty is pervasive, a large dowry can mean the difference between survival and destitution, making it tempting to marry daughters off to the wealthiest suitors, regardless of age or personal compatibility. A bride's value hinges on her youth and perceived purity, often negotiated long before she reaches adolescence. In many rural districts, girls as young as 8 or 9 are promised in marriage to older men whose families can afford the highest dowry. This practice not only commodifies girls but perpetuates cycles of poverty. Once married, the bride is barred from further education or paid work, sealing her economic dependency on her husband and his kin. Health and human rights organizations repeatedly document the devastating toll. Complications from early pregnancy, high rates of maternal mortality, and deep psychological scars that can last a lifetime. Yet local customs and economic necessity frequently override calls for reform, since families view dowry payments as essential inflows of cash or assets that safeguard their own financial survival. 7. Child and early marriages. In Afghanistan, child marriage is not the exception but the rule in many provinces. By custom, girls are officially wed as soon as they enter puberty, often before their 12th birthday. These ceremonies proceed with or without the girl's consent, binding her to a life of domestic servitude and deprivation of agency. The consequences are severe. Adolescent mothers face dangerous childbirth, ranging from obstetric fistula to fatal hemorrhage. Psychologically, young brides suffer trauma from abrupt transitions into adult roles, forced to care for children of their own barely years after entering adolescence themselves. Education, once begun, is almost always abandoned, closing off any realistic chance to pursue an independent future. International efforts to raise the legal marriage age have made little headway against entrenched rural traditions and interpretations of religious texts that prioritize family stability over individual autonomy. Even in urban centers where attitudes may be slowly evolving, the pressure to conform to long-standing customs remains formidable. 6. Bacha Posh. In families lacking a male heir, a remarkable and heart-wrenching custom emerges. Bacha Posh, or dressed as a boy. From early childhood until puberty, a daughter is dressed in boys' clothing, given a short haircut, and allowed freedoms normally reserved for male children. She may attend school unaccompanied, run errands alone, and even help her father in trades or markets, activities strictly off-limits to her sisters. During these formative years, the Bacha Posh revels in autonomy, forming friendships and skills that would otherwise be inaccessible. Yet this sanctioned identity is inherently temporary. Upon reaching adolescence, the girl must relinquish her boyish guise, don female attire, often the full burqa, and adopt the subdued, private role of young womanhood. This forced reversal can be devastating. After years of independence, the newly refeminized teen is thrust into a restricted existence, where every step outside the home requires male accompaniment and every aspiration must be channeled through the male guardians in her life. The abrupt loss of freedom frequently induces deep emotional distress, eroding the confidence built up during her boyhood years. 5. Bahad as debt repayment. In rural Afghanistan, family disputes and monetary debts can be settled by offering a daughter in marriage, a practice known as bahad. When a family member is accused of a serious offense or accrues an insurmountable debt, a daughter is handed over to the aggrieved party as a living guarantee. Her worth in this grim calculus corresponds to the magnitude of the grievance. For the girl involved, this transaction erases any vestige of personal choice. She is relocated to an unfamiliar household, where affection and respect are replaced by duty and subjugation. Often, these marriages occur without any formal consent, sealing her fate in a union that benefits familial reconciliation at the cost of her autonomy and well-being. Bahad marriages perpetuate a chilling message. Women are collateral, tools to balance male honor and settle male disputes. Human rights advocates decry the practice as a gross violation of fundamental freedoms, yet local power dynamics and patriarchal norms ensure its persistence. 4. The burqa and female mobility. With the Taliban's resurgence in 2021 came the reinstatement of the full burqa as mandatory attire nationwide. Gone are the days when a simple headscarf sufficed. Now, women must wear garments that conceal every inch of skin and face, save for a narrow mesh screen to see through. Venturing outdoors without a male escort can incur severe punishments, from fines to imprisonment or physical coercion. Beyond the fabric itself, the law imposes strict male chaperone requirements. Whether to purchase medicine, fetch water, or attend a spoken-word gathering, women must secure a mahram, a male relative, to accompany them. This enforced dependency eliminates spontaneous movement, traps many women within domestic walls, and prevents access to education or paid employment. The burqa thus becomes both physical barrier and symbolic cage, an emblem of enforced invisibility. By masking female presence in public spaces, it not only deprives women of agency, but erases their contributions to community life, reinforcing a cycle of marginalization. 3. Nanawatai, the asylum ritual. Amidst customs that restrict women's freedoms, one ancient tradition stands out for its spirit of mercy. Nanawatai, the right to seek asylum. In tribal lore, anyone facing mortal danger or wrongful accusation can knock on the door of an enemy's home and plead for protection. Once admitted, they are under the host's unwavering safeguard, immune from vendetta or harm. Though this ritual predominantly applies to male intertribal conflicts, There are documented cases of women invoking Nanawati to escape domestic violence or forced marriage. By appealing to community leaders or sympathetic clans, a young woman can claim sanctuary, albeit precariously. Under this honored code, placing her fate in the hands of local ethics rather than her own family. Nanawati reveals the dual nature of Afghan tradition. Cruelty and compassion can coexist, and the same cultural fabric that binds women in servitude can also, in extraordinary circumstances, shelter them from violence. 2. Underground animal fights. In remote enclaves across Afghanistan, subterranean arenas host illicit cockfights and dogfights, atavistic spectacles that fuse economic incentive with tribal notions of masculinity. Despite strict Taliban prohibitions against such blood sports, bettors and breeders operate in caves, barns, or hidden compounds, risking severe penalties for the chance at prestige and profit. A prized fighting rooster can fetch up to 5,000 Afghanis, about $57, while high-stakes matches draw wagers exceeding 50,000 Afghanis, roughly $570, some staggering in a nation where the average annual wage hovers around 35,000 Afghanis, $400. Victory elevates not only the animal but also the owner's reputation, reinforcing status hierarchies in male-dominated circles deprived of legal entertainment. These contests foster a covert economy. Clandestine veterinarians treat combat wounds, black market breeders engineer more aggressive stock, and hardened gamblers trade tips on stealth venues. Yet violence permeates every level, from forced feeding of stimulants to cruel training regimens designed to increase an animal's tenacity. Periodic crackdowns by religious police can shutter operations temporarily, but the lure of tradition and profit ensures their swift resurrection. 1. Shabi Yalda celebration. In stark contrast to everyday oppression, Shabi Yalda, the celebration of the winter solstice, or the longest night of the year, illuminates Afghan culture's enduring capacity for joy and solidarity. Rooted in ancient Persian customs, families gather to feast on pomegranates, watermelons, and nuts, foods colored red to symbolize the sun's victorious return after darkness. Elders recite verses from Hafez's poetry, using his enigmatic quatrains as a form of divination to predict fortunes for the coming year. Children listen wide-eyed as candlelit gatherings blur the line between poetry recital and communal ritual. In some villages, villagers build small outdoor bonfires, encircling them to sing tribal songs and dance under starlit skies, a rare moment when even the strictest gender prohibitions relax slightly. For Afghan women, Yalda constitutes a precious interlude of meaningful participation. While the burqa remains compulsory outdoors, inside private homes women join in storytelling, song, and gift-giving, exchanging hand-stitched scarves, small oil lamps, or verses inscribed on parchment. These tokens affirm mutual care and preserve intergenerational bonds, offering a glimmer of autonomy and cultural agency in an otherwise restrictive society. Though modern surveillance and intermittent Taliban bans have curtailed large gatherings, Shabi Yalda persists in discreet family circles. Women and men craft secret invitations, encrypt poetry readings in code, and smuggle pomegranates to hidden courtyards. This resilient celebration stands as proof that even in the darkest hours, Afghan communities can kindle the light of heritage and hope. We have traversed a panorama of customs ranging from the brutal reality of forced, age-disparate marriages and economic dowry schemes to the extraordinary ritual of Shabi Yalda, where poetry and communal warmth defy oppression. Afghanistan is a land of stark contrasts. The same ground that imprisons women with rigid burqas and patriarchal edicts also shelters centuries-old traditions of asylum, poetic communion, and clandestine solidarity. Now, we invite you to reflect. Which of these customs surprised you most? And what single change do you believe could transform the lives of Afghan women? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's hidden cultures, and help amplify these vital voices by liking and sharing this video. Thank you for joining us on World Marvels. Until our next journey into the extraordinary.